He rushed home to Robin. He needed to check in on, I don't know, the kid.
I didn't realize such a weird and embarrassing thing to admit.
Welcome back to Sister Wives Twist. Today we're exploring a topic that's bound to get those old feelings stirred up for veteran Sister Wives viewers. Kody Brown recently posted a brief video on Instagram, reading from her new book, and what she said has set tongues wagging. In one chapter in particular, she recounts the birth of her daughter, Truly, and accuses Kody Brown of leaving her during labor. Leaving her during labor. Why did he do it? Kody doesn't quite say, but the implication is unmistakable. If you remember back to the very first season of Sister Wives, this isn't even a new revelation. It actually reaffirms what a lot of fans have known for years. When Kody was in labor, Kody said he had to change, but rather than going home to do so, he headed directly to Robin's house. At the time, Kody didn't reside with Robin, and they weren't even married yet. There was nothing he could particularly point to as a reason for being there. He was not taking any kids to the hospital, and there was no emergency. It was just strange. And that's not all. When Kody was giving birth, Kody made Robin go outside with him so he could kiss her, then instructed her not to let the camera people see them. He didn't want them to see him kissing his girlfriend when his wife was giving birth. Let that sink in. What he was doing wasn't the issue, it was getting caught. This incident has become Sister Wives lore as one of the most notorious instances of Kody's dubious priorities, particularly regarding Kody and his family with her. And truly, it raises a much broader discussion. Let's discuss how Kody's abandonment pattern went far beyond that one instance. When Robin first entered the scene officially, Kody appeared to emotionally, and sometimes physically, withdraw from the rest of his family. Once, following Truly's birth, Kody took an 11-day honeymoon with Robin. Consider that, 11 days away from his newborn daughter and the wife whom he'd just watched give birth. On the show, the wives generally described how it was known that Kody would spend additional time with whichever wife had just given birth, to assist, to bond, to offer support. But in this situation, that understanding definitely wasn't respected. And Kody, she was left behind once again. Kody's musings in her book may only tantalizingly scratch the surface of a greater truth, that throughout the relationship, she was constantly shoved to the sidelines. And Robin, she appeared to profit from that imbalance. Kody recently uploaded another video boasting about her book again, this time scanning through pages and displaying some of the photos within. One portion appeared to discuss the family's court fight regarding polygamy. To her, they first won a case against the state of Utah, but the win didn't last. The decision was later reversed on appeal, and the Supreme Court refused to hear the case. Even through that temporary legal victory, Kody still could not become a legal wife. Perhaps the book will delve into whether she regrets having fought for the legalization of polygamy, particularly given the abuse that was occurring off-camera and within Utah polygamous communities. She was standing on the steps of the Capitol once, hotly defending plural marriage and distancing their family from factions such as the FLDS. But looking back now, will she admit to that darker truth? And speaking of that, I'm curious to see whether Kody touches on her grandfather Rulon's legacy. He's a fascinating, if controversial, figure in fundamentalist Mormon history. After the death of a previous leader in the 1950s, Rulon stepped in, but not without resistance. Another group, led by Leroy Johnson, believed he should take over instead. That disagreement led to a split. Rulon's followers became the Apostolic United Brethren, while Johnson's group eventually became the FLDS. So Kody's narrative is not simply about family. It's also deeply embedded in the larger, complicated history of polygamy and religious leadership. Now here's where Kody's tale takes an even more vicious and little-explored turn, one rooted firmly in her family history and the violent undertows of fanatical Mormon cults. Rulon Alred, Kody's great-grandfather and the leader of the Apostolic United Brethren (OB), was assassinated in the 1970s. His killing wasn't accidental. It was orchestrated by a woman who was affiliated with opposing leader Ervil LeBaron, who had a reputation for extreme and violent views. And this is not ancient family history. Ervil was Kody's great-uncle. Ervil LeBaron was the self-proclaimed chosen prophet, the one mighty and strong. In his mind, anyone else who held that title, such as Rulon, was a false prophet worthy of being punished. And by punishment, Ervil meant blood atonement. He felt that he was spiritually bound to kill anyone whom he perceived was leading followers astray. That grudge ended in a number of murders, such as the murder of Rulon, purely because Ervil coveted his power, his influence, and his followers. This dark period has never been discussed on Sister Wives, but seriously, it's difficult to fully grasp Christine's upbringing without mentioning it. The killing of Rulon didn't simply put an end to someone's life. It altered the entire dynamic in their community. The fear was no longer just about government raids or social persecution, it was fear of other polygamist communities. Following the death of Rulon, paranoia escalated. Then, without warning, the danger came within the religious world as well. That created more regulations, more restriction, and more separation for families such as Christine's. Christine was only a little girl then, but the trauma would not have been lost on her. Her dad, Rex, was Rulon's son from his second wife, and one of the first kids born in that line of the family. Since Rex was so close to Rulon, that killing wasn't some abstract tragedy, it was intimate. And for Christine, it must have formed her opinions on family, leadership, and trust in ways she never even realized. It's not certain if she'll investigate this legacy in her book, but it would be an egregious oversight not to. Because this history, this episode of fear and violence, was a turning point that helped cement the deeply conservative and fearful culture she came of age in. Let's go back to the here and now. Christine's book also appears to broach the effort to legalize polygamy in Utah. She looks back on their family's legal battle. They sued the state, won at first, only to have the ruling reversed on appeal. The Supreme Court eventually declined to hear the case, ending their fight. But that's where things get murky, and perhaps even remorseful. While the law was reformed to lower punishments, it's disingenuous to suggest polygamy is legal today. It's no longer a felony only if there are no other crimes present. But come on, those other crimes are too often braided together with fundamentalist polygamy. Underage marriages, coercive unions, exploitation of labor, welfare fraud, tax evasion, bankruptcy fraud, the list continues. The AUB, Christine's ex-dynasty, doesn't have nearly as ugly a record when it comes to marrying off children as the FLDS, but let's not pretend. Grooming little girls for subsequent marriages continues to occur. There are still men accused of abuse, still practices which raise serious ethical and legal concerns. So now the question is, how does Christine really feel about all of this? Once she proudly stood on the Capitol steps, fighting for the right to live her way of life. She said that polygamy, as lived by her family, was far from the coercive, abusive systems people equated her with Warren Jeffs and others. But with what we know now, and with the actual harm which has been documented, does she feel otherwise? Does she regret to have used her voice to support a system that, in most instances, hurt women and children? And now that she is urging others to exit that sphere, how will her past advocacy be received by those who were previously silenced for issuing warnings against those very risks? These are tough, hard questions, and ones which Christine, if she is willing to respond, might cast powerful illumination upon. Her experience isn't merely individual. It's political, it's historic, and one that might assist others in escaping patterns of silence and domination. Do you see where I'm headed here? On the one hand, Christine's new book is going to be a raw, unapologetic tell-all about how Kody abused her, and fans are totally going to devour that. She's finally calling out names, calling out Kody for leaving her in the most vulnerable times of her life, and exposing years of emotional abandonment. That level of honesty, it's powerful. But here is where it gets tricky. Will any of this come with an acknowledgement of the larger context? Of the women who struggled for years, sometimes decades, before being excluded and dismissed by families such as Christine's? Let us not forget, there were many victims whose tales were pushed under the rug by the same individuals who are now stepping into the light. When Christine and the Brown clan were promoting polygamy on TV, they presented a vision of plural families living happily and healthily together, carefully avoiding mention of the more sinister realities. And in doing so, they influenced public opinion in Utah. They assisted in desensitizing the perception of polygamy, paving the way for a change in the law that many claim has caused more harm than good. Speak with people who actually reside in Utah, and they'll inform you. The decriminalization has not produced the safety net that it was intended to. Of course, on paper, women can now report abuse without fear of being prosecuted, but the reality is, women who grow up in these closed societies are hardly ever taught to trust the police to begin with. The reform hasn't changed that. Rather, it's had a chilling secondary effect. It's only made abusers more aggressive. Consider the case of Samuel Bateman, for instance, a man just arrested for having 27 wives, among them several underage girls, one as young as 10. It's a sickening case that shows that the system still permits predators to thrive. And to make matters worse, many people feel that such cases are increasing in frequency because men feel protected from the new laws. What makes it worse is that when the laws did change, access to state-sponsored reparations for victims did as well. There was a window of time when survivors were able to apply for financial compensation and recognition from the state of Utah for not having protected them. That window has closed now. So many women who might have been able to use that help to escape from dangerous situations no longer can. Let me be plain, Christine is not responsible for everything that has happened. She grew up in the system, molded by its standards and used by its players. But sometimes public recognition from an individual with her voice can do a lot. A mere acknowledgement of the damage done, not to her alone, but to others as well, can heal the individuals who feel that their suffering was belittled by the show and its story. And perhaps Christine was being manipulated by the AUB to sell a sanitized version of polygamy, one that suited their purposes, even if she never really believed it herself. She said that she didn't really believe in what she was telling the world at the time, and that sort of manipulation is difficult to accept, never mind confess to the world. But if she can, and if she wishes to own up to that narrative, it could be everything for women who are still caught in that system. So yes, we're all here for the juicy parts, the confessions about Kody, the truth about Robin, the untold moments of betrayal. Those revelations are definitely going to grab headlines and spark conversations. But my hope is that Christine goes deeper, that she talks not only about what was done to her, but also about how she might have unknowingly been used to do harm to others. There's still so much we don't know about what's in the book, but I'm certainly excited to find out. And now, I want to hear from you. What do you think about everything we've talked about? Do you think Christine will speak out on the wider implications of her previous church? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I enjoy reading what you have to say. And before you leave, don't forget to like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and tap that bell so you never miss an update. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, besties. Bye.